Clearly the greatest sex tip of all is to wear a condom while you're having sex, but there's more to it than just that. And so today we're going to be going to one of the biggest purveyors of sex tips, that's Cosmo, and evaluate a few of the more ridiculous ones. And as always, this video is brought to you by our sponsor, CondomJungle.com. You can hit the description below for a link to their site where you can stock up on condoms to hump responsibly with. But you're going to be leading us through some of these, and there's some of the most ridiculous ones. From time to time, we talk about some of the ones that actually might be good. These are kind of crazy.
Right. So as we've talked about on the show before, Cosmo, and as you know, if you've ever picked up a Cosmo, they have ridiculous sex tips that I've often read before in college and thought, really? Like, really? Am I just completely out of it, or is this creepy? And it might also lead you to believe that every single Cosmo editor is starving and sitting around all day fantasizing about sex and food, because a lot of these are like very creepily food related. Now the first one is slip a donut around his penis and slowly eat it off.
Yeah, the donut, not the penis. Get off my donut, chef.
Here's my problem with this. So I think it'll be really great to finally, you know, obviously Cosmo has a largely female audience. It'll be so great to finally get a male's perspective on whether or not this is something that you would actually want done to you.
Okay, yeah, so you want my impression?
I do, but first of all, I want to say, for me, I don't think this would work because my favorite donuts are the ones that are like cream-filled, so they don't have holes in them. So what are you going to do?
We don't need two cream-filled things mucking up the works. No, you just poke it right through and it just goes everywhere. That's disgusting. Okay, so I think that if you just ask a guy, particularly a young guy, would you like a girl to eat a donut off of your penis?
Oh, yeah.
He'd be like, yeah, that'd be awesome because you're spending time down there. But think of what she's actually doing. Every second she spends chewing on donuts, she's not doing anything to you, buddy.
Right.
She could just do that before or after that, I think. So, and as the alternate editor who tried this out said, no, it's just disgusting. You get chocolate everywhere. It's kind of nasty. Just save it for before or after. I don't think it's necessary. It's novel, I suppose, but it's not necessary.
And as she also pointed out, like, she used a chocolate donut, and she said once chocolate is smeared all over somebody's dick, it looks a lot like poop.
I was waiting to see if you'd say the word poop. Wonderful. Yeah, and you don't want that idea. You already probably don't like giving head enough as it is. Let's not also put poop into the equation.
All right, so that one gets a yes?
No!
Okay, so the next one is sprinkle a little pepper under his nose right before he climaxes. Again, food related. Sneezing can feel similar to an orgasm and amplify the feel-good effects.
I love it. It feels similar to an orgasm. Oh, well, why don't we just do the orgasm then?
Or like, if sneezing really does feel similar to an orgasm, like every time somebody's in the office like, chew, I'll be like, ooh, like, that was a good sneeze.
Maybe for this editor it feels similar. I think it's different. But I also love the idea that like the whole time they're having sex, the guy's wondering, what are you holding in your hand, babe? And then at the moment of climax, she's like, smoke bomb, right in your face. Like, why would you do that? Like, or like, she picks up the thing and shakes it over his face. I try to concentrate on what I'm doing in bed. These editors are like the ultimate multitaskers. They're having sex with two people with like a hand in their body, but they're also planning gourmet meals.
Okay.
So that, for me, gets a no.
Another no.
Yeah. I mean, I like some paprika in the face as I'm about to climax. Some pepper, though.
Or cinnamon, right? All right. Feed each other ice cream in the dark. Not being able to see means more spilling, which means more licking up the mess. Yeah.
I already have a problem with spilling things in places I'm not supposed to in bed. I don't need to also bring Rocky Road into the mix.
What do you mean?
You'll find out. No. Anyway, that's disgusting. Anyway, but no, that's like, look, I think that non-donut food in the bedroom can be fun as long as you keep it relatively simple. But if you're talking about in the dark, trying to make it more spilly, what is the inherent appeal about spilling ice cream in your bed?
Yeah, well, and that's what this woman who tried it points out too, is like, okay, it's one thing to like have food on your body and lick it off, and that can be sexy, but once it's just sticky and in your sheets and just making a mess, then it's kind of like, oh, now we just have to do a lot of unnecessary laundry, even more than we had to already. So I think maybe keep this foreplay to the kitchen or somewhere with like slick surfaces that are easily wiped down.
Yeah.
That would be my suggestion.
I understand that these tips are, for the most part, they're not for like the first time you're with someone. It's for someone who's like, man, you know, we've had sex 1,000 times. You need something different, which is totally fair. But I personally think that there's a lot of appeal in licking a body. It doesn't have to have food on it. But
no,
maybe you're more bored with the
body.
Okay.
Preferably cheese.
I'm hungry right now. Cheese.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, sure.
But that's another thing, and that's a great point, but that's always something that kind of weirds me out about Cosmo, is that Cosmo is definitely geared toward early and late teens, maybe early 20s.
It is?
People that I
the sex
feel
tips
like
seem
that.
like they're for like 35-year-old women.
But that's exactly my point, is like the magazine is geared toward younger women, But if you're that young, you probably haven't been having sex for that long. You're probably not incredibly bored with it yet. You probably don't need to start introducing like donuts and cheese and forks as we're about to talk about. Like these are tips that you might need when you're like 45 and you're like, wow, I am so bored with this, you know, doing the same position every night for the last 10 years. Anyway.
I know like 3. So 2.
At least. All right, anyway, the next one. Press a fork, parentheses, firmly, but don't break the skin or anything, into different parts of his body. His butt cheeks, his pecs, his thighs.
His eyeballs. Yeah, I don't... Do they even say what the appeal is supposed to be there?
No, they don't even say what it's supposed to be. But here again, food-related.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're in the kitchen when they're writing it. Like, I can understand if you want something risky, putting like a knife against their skin. That could be like, oh, this is risky. Like, they could cut me if they wanted to.
But maybe that's why a fork is better, because it's like, it's risky, but it's not too risky.
Oh, you almost broke the skin.
No, a fork is still pointy. Because what if you have a knife and you think you're in control, and then in the heat of passion, you're like, whoops!
Yeah, like, right up the ass. Anyway, that's a bad idea. So as a girl, do you find that appealing if a guy were to do it to you?
If a guy were to try to stab me with a fork, I'd be like, don't fucking touch me. What is your problem? This is not sexy in the slightest.
Yeah.
I don't really get it.
I think it's possible. So you were just talking about how, and this is probably my last point for this, that there's this weird incongruency by like the teen audience and then the sex tips for 35-year-olds. Maybe the explanation is that the sex tips are being written by the teens who haven't had sex necessarily, and so they just think this stuff would be fun, but they haven't actually tested it.
Either that, or every single editor is like 55 years old, is like, what are kids into these days? And they just have like a bag of Cheetos by them. They're like, oh, I know, put a Cheeto up their ass. Like, something ridiculous.
You still have dust on your ass, babe. It's been like 2 days. That's disgusting. Anyway, so these sex tips are probably taking it way too far. I think that you can keep it relatively simple. The simplest, most important tip of all is to use condoms. And if you're out of condoms, you can head to condomjungle.com. There's a link in the description where you can stock up on condoms. They'll send them straight to your door, whether you're in the US or abroad, and they'll do it discreetly. Nobody has to know what you're having delivered. And that's a great way, I think, to hump responsibly.